Welcome back. His name is associated with one of Sioux City's busiest streets, Hamilton Boulevard.
But just who is Hamilton and why does he have a street named after him? I've got the answer in today's edition of Hometown History. Busy Hamilton Boulevard. It's where many of Sioux City's first took place. The first McDonald's, the first Taco John's, the first Applebee's, and other past restaurants like the Red Onion and also Sambo's. Now, back in the 1850s, this area was known as North Sioux City. It was platted or divided into lots, but eventually in 1868, James H. Hamilton and some partners, they bought this area, and what was then known as Hannibal Street became Hamilton. This is what the north end of Hamilton looked like in 1905 near Outer Drive. It went from being a cow path to a dirt road with houses along it. These days, businesses galore line Hamilton Boulevard, but where I'm standing on this hill was once the Sunset View Golf Course, which in the early 1960s became the site of Sioux City's first urban mall, the Sunset Plaza Shopping Center, now known as the Marketplace Shopping Center.
Suddenly, there was all this traffic on Hamilton Boulevard now, and the rest of the street needed to catch up.
But Hamilton didn't come here just to be a land speculator.
He was Sioux City's leading photographer.
Tom Muntz of the Sioux City Public Museum says Hamilton took many panoramic views of the city from Prospect Hill. Also photos of the first Corn Palace in 1887 and the 1,200-seat PV Grand Opera House. He also focused on photographing Native Americans, and the most famous of those is listed in his records as the only photograph ever taken of Crazy Horse.
Unfortunately, we have no prints.
When he died, James H. Hamilton was buried here in the Floyd Cemetery on a hill overlooking the Floyd River. So why is there a headstone memorializing James H. Hamilton in the Graceland Cemetery in the Morningside area of Sioux City?
He was dug up in 1916 and moved to be with the rest of the family, which was in Graceland Cemetery. So it's actually very near the north entrance of that cemetery.
If you're interested in learning more about some other well-known Sioux Citians who are buried in local cemeteries and maybe have a street named after them, the Sioux City Public Museum holding a tour of the Calvary Cemetery Saturday, October 26th. That'll take place at 10 in the morning. Among those interned, there are William Steele, the architect of the Woodbury County Courthouse, T.S. Martin, who started the T.S. Martin department store in the 1880s, and guitarist Tommy Bolin. You can call the museum for more information.